Resigned. I'm Molly Carmel, and this is the podcast I always wish existed, a bite sized, on the ground spiritual note that can shift your thinking and your outlook on life to help make us all a little bit more awake, alive, and ascending. I want to talk today about this phrase that a friend of mine just used that I know I say this a lot, but I guess my head is very sticky because I have just not been able to get this out of my head. It named something that I watch happen over and over and over again in my life, in the life of people I work with, and he called it a one-handed surrender. And the moment he said that, I was like, oh my goodness, that is it. That is it. So my friend has been on a profound recovery journey, profound and long, and he has a lot of years. And we were talking about his early days recently, like that raw, terrifying, sort of hopeful stretch when everything's new and you're just trying to hold on. And he said this thing that just stopped me in my tracks. And he said, when he first got sober, he was willing to put down the substance, right? He was willing to stop drinking. That he could do that, right? He could stop. He could sort of like do what he was told to do on the outside. But he was not even in the stratosphere of willing to look at what was underneath it, right? To look at what the pain was driving it, to look at the ways he'd been showing up in his relationship, to look at the deeper patterns that had nothing to do with the substance itself. And he called it a one-handed surrender. One hand up while the other hand is still kind of gripping. And I was like, whoa. And listen, I just want to make it clear, like, I don't want to pigeonhole our spiritual experience to recovery. It just happens to be a really good place to be talking about things like this. But, if we're very honest, the one-handed surrender is all over the place, right? So it's the person who like leaves a relationship but won't look at their part in it. And then like bippity boppity boo, they find themselves in the exact same dynamic with someone new, wondering how they got there again. Or it's a person who resigns from a job or gets let go and starts fresh somewhere new. And wouldn't you know it, the same patterns, the same defenses, the same unexamined ways of operating are still there. And they're like, why does this new place feel like the old one? Right? The answer, as I was like mind blown from my friend, was, well, one hand is up and one hand is still gripping, right? Willing to change the outside, but not yet willing to look at the inside. And I mean, this hit me right in the gut, And because I really experienced multiple instances like this. I've been in multiple times where I've had to surrender. And I'll say, it is real, right? I'll say, okay, like I'll give this up and I'll change this and I'll do the thing that I need to do, but only like there's a condition to it, but not that other thing. Like I feel really like I have to keep this one thing. This I cannot let go of. And it feels super glued. I'll be honest, in my experience, it feels absolutely super glued. Like I would genuinely give up anything else, just not this one thing that you're telling me is the way to freedom. And, gosh, I hate it to be true, but usually when I finally surrender both hands, that's exactly where the freedom is. Ugh. And that brings us to our pocket sage today. It is from Gerald May's The Awakened Heart. We got a new pocket sage on campus today, Ascenders. And Gerald May was a psychiatrist and a theologian and just like a really honest voice in psychology and spiritual life. And here's what he said. If we are honest, I think we have to admit that we will likely try to sabotage any movement towards true freedom. If we really knew what we were called to relinquish on this journey, our defenses would never allow us to take the first step. Let me read that again for those of you in the back. If we are honest, I think we have to admit that we will likely try to sabotage any movement towards true freedom. If we really knew what we were called to relinquish on this journey, our defenses would never allow us to take the first step. Wow. Our defenses would never allow us to take the first step. I mean, that's really the one-handed surrender right there, right? That part of us that will just go far enough, but not 1 inch further. And underneath that part, if you look closely enough, 100,000% of the time will be fear. It will be fear. And so our word of the day today is surrender. And listen, ascenders, I plan to be with you for a really long time. And I'm going to promise you the word of the day is going to be surrender more than once, right? I'm coming back to it today very deliberately because there are words that are so important that we say more than once. And surrender is most definitely one of them. And what I want to say about surrender today is specifically about the second hand, the hand that feels super glued to your soul, to your body, to your substance, to your idea, to your belief, right? The one that stays gripping while the first one goes up readily. Because real surrender, two-handed surrender, all the way in, is one of the most spiritually significant acts that a human being can make. I mean, and obviously it's also one of the hardest. And it's not because we lack courage exactly, but it's because it requires such a high level of trust and willingness and leaping and hoping that the net's going to appear. And listen, willingness takes courage and trust takes courage. Don't get me wrong. They all live together, right? You can't have one without the other. And I want to say that this reading is really harping on that our defenses are not our enemies. And it's so important to look at it with that kind of compassionate lens. Our defenses are protecting us from something that feels genuinely threatening, right? The second hand is not gripping because we're morally bad. The second hand is gripping because we are scared out of our minds. And the real work isn't necessarily to force the hand open with like a barb or whatever you use. I'm obviously, not really equipped to be opening things with tools. But I think the real work is to get curious about what it's gripping onto, right? What it's holding so hard onto. To ask ourselves, what am I so afraid of losing if I let this go? And then to find out that whatever's on the other side of fear is the thing that you've been looking for all along. And so here's what I want you to think about today. A one-handed surrender is going to get you a one-handed result. Let me say that one again for those of you in the back. A one-handed surrender will get you a one-handed result. And somewhere in you, you already know which hand you're still holding back. And listen, I have nothing but compassion for a one-handed surrender, like namaste one-handed surrender, because the reading is right. If we could see the full cost of real surrender up front, most of us would never start, right? The second hand we keep gripping is not stupidity or weakness. It is straight up fear, right? Human fear. Fear of what we're going to find if we look there, fear of who we're going to be without the thing we've been holding, fear that freedom on the other side might ask something of us that we're not sure we can give. Because I think the second hand, that hand that feels that's really gripping, is just gripping control and illusion. And the illusion, if I could just manage this correctly, if I could just hold on to this one thing, I can keep myself safe. The substance goes, but the controlling stays. The relationship ends, but the pattern stays. The job changes, but the defenses stay. The behavior changes, but that control does not, right? And that's a one-handed surrender. And real freedom, the kind that actually changes you, requires letting go of the outcome too. Oh, so hard, but so amazing. Not just the behavior, the control underneath it. But I just want to tell you this. After doing this a whole bunch of times, after, getting some ointment to get my hand up for my two-handed surrender, right? And after years of sitting with people and watching them in the middle of theirs, the thing that feels most superglued is almost always the thing most worth releasing. Pinky swear on that. The hand that won't open is protecting the wound, and the wound needs to be healed. And as long as it stays closed, the wound stays protected and unhealed. And my friend described the shift from one-handed to two-handed surrender as one of the most terrifying and liberating things he ever did. Not because things got easier, but because for the first time he was actually in it, doing the work instead of the performance of the work, And the sabotage, the ways that he'd been quietly undermining his own freedom, finally made sense. Because it was never about not wanting to heal. This is never about not wanting to heal. It's only about being afraid of what healing costs. Hear me on that. And there's a version of change that looks really good from the outside and feels very hollow on the inside. And there's a version of that messy and slow and costs you things you didn't know you were holding on that actually changes you. The difference is how many hands are up, right? And listen, you don't have to open the second hand today. We're just going on a first date with the idea. But I do want to ask you honestly, is there something you've been surrendering with one hand while the other one holds on? Is there a place in your life when you've been willing to go right up to the edge and then found a very good reason not to cross it? Because that edge is where the freedom is. And the other side of that freedom is so real, I promise you. So, your reflective question for today. What are you still gripping with one hand? And what do you think you might be afraid of if you finally release it and put two hands in the air? And of course, I want to say, Ascenders, if the one hand surrender is showing up in your relationship with food and body and weight and dieting and all of that, and you've been willing to try another approach but not willing to look underneath, that's really what I do in my Stop Starting Over system. And it is incredible. Like, we really gently go there. We really, really heal the wound, You don't have to find it alone. You can book a discovery call. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to mollycarmel.com to learn more and know that I am right here with you, Ascenders, learning to go all the way in, one brave step at a time. And listen, if you are like loving being a sender, like spread the word, let everybody know, annoy them, be like, this is the best thing going. Share it, like it, post it on your Instagram, because we rise together. Until next time.